Welcome to Tekedia Daily. I'm Ndubuisi Ekekwe. A conversation today we focus on what we need to do in order to stimulate the venture capital sector in Africa. And I'm proposing that it's time the African Union understands that Africa has to offer very generous tax incentives so that we can stimulate this vital instrument for competitiveness and growth of modern companies. Over the last few years, we have seen um, a great entrepreneurial boom across the African continent, from Lagos to Nairobi, Casablanca to Dar es Salaam, Cape Town to Ogadago. We have seen all these companies growing. But one thing that has not happened is seeing the next phase of that growth at a scale that they can actually compete very, very well at the global arena. The missing element is capital, which is basically the lifeblood of any growing company. Innovation we have, capacity to innovate we have, but that growth capital is what is not just usually available. A generation of very rich people in Africa did not make money through technology. And that means that they don't necessarily understand the paradigm, the trajectory technology companies go through. And so we have that disconnect, making it very difficult to tap into some of the rich Africans in order for us to grow next generation companies of the 21st century. And also, there is also been this issue that when you sojourn outside Africa to look for this capital, people like to see a reputation or a pattern that has been demonstrated in the past. Unfortunately, Africa does not have that a lot, unlike places like, especially, let me say, Israel, where they have this consistent track record of generating returns, especially for Western Europe and American venture capital firms. So we don't have that receipt, and we have not had a lot of them, and that is a big problem. So that means we need to do something radical for us to actually have the capacity to grow that sector. The global venture capital industry is very, very challenging. They look extremely exciting outside, but when you go there, you just realize that very few people actually make money. If you look into the unicorns of compiled by Fortune magazine of about 121 companies in the world, these are companies that have a valuation of at least $1 billion in the technology space, and they are private. The top 20 of them actually account for more than 50% of the value. So what this means here is that the total value for these VCs are actually concentrated in very few companies. And these are companies that pioneer specific sectors of their respective categories. They are called category kings. They lead their areas. In social media, they dominate. In analytics, they dominate. So they own that space. And once they have dominated that space, it's very difficult for another person to come in. They are rewarded. Companies like Uber, Xiaomi, Airbnb, Palantir. So these are category king companies. They are very, very powerful. Now, if you are a VC and you don't have a company represented in the first 20, it means basically that you are not doing very well. But if you can have a company here, it automatically means that you are having a very great time. So the implication of that is that most of these venture capital, they just try to focus how can they get a pie into these very great companies. So the paradigm is this: take all the risk you can. If it works great. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. And the elite VCs understand this thing, that you don't get into this game and become extremely too cautious. Because let's say, for instance, you have $100 million to spend and you use the 100 million to invest in aggressively pioneering companies. There is a possibility that one of those companies can generate a return of $500 million. But if you are extremely cautious, the propensity there is that you will never get into those great companies that can actually become the kings in their own specific categories. Now, we have not been very lucky in African continent to have those great VCs that are ready to fund category kings, pioneering companies at the respective sectors or respective categories. The implication of that, because we have these cautious VCs, they don't take a lot of risk. They always wait for you to generate revenue before they come in. Unfortunately, that is a problem. It means that we don't have people that can help to unlock the value that can actually help African companies build that category can become those unicorns that are necessary to validate what everyone is expecting from the continent. So how are we going to solve this problem? I propose that we give a 10-year tax holiday to any investments in venture capital industry that is registered anywhere in Africa. African Union has to lead this. And any profit they make through that investment within the 10 years should also have zero taxation. The implication of that is they begin to prioritize how they will enjoy this 10-year tax holiday as they begin to allocate capital across the globe. I'm confident that it will have a lot of impact because if you are not here, you are just basically not playing a role. And this is the biggest problem because the wealth is concentrated at the top, where the dominance force is located in this power curve. Africa needs to have representatives here, and we need capital to do that. African Union needs to lead to stimulate that industry. Thank you very much.